The 5-minute trick to crush procrastination forever. You ever find yourself at 2 a.m., phone glowing in your face, thumb flicking through an endless feed of memes, cat videos, or some random guy explaining how to organize your fridge? Yeah, that was me a couple of years back. I'd tell myself I'd just check one more post, maybe watch one more clip, and then bam, I'd get to work. You know, the important stuff, the project due in 3 days, the email I swore I'd send, the gym routine I promised myself I'd start. But somehow one more video turned into an hour, then two, and before I knew it, the birds were chirping outside and I hadn't done a damn thing. I wasn't always like this. Back in college, I could crank out a 10-page paper in one night, fueled by Red Bull and sheer panic. But somewhere along the way, after graduation, after moving to a new city, after landing a job that was fine but not exactly thrilling, I started slipping. It wasn't laziness, or at least I didn't think so. It was more like this invisible weight. Every time I sat down to do something, apply for a better job, start a side hustle, even just clean my apartment, it felt like I was staring at a mountain. So instead of climbing, I'd grab my phone or binge a show or tell myself, I'll do it tomorrow when I'm in a better mood. Spoiler, tomorrow never felt better. The worst part, I knew I was screwing myself over. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying all the things I didn't do that day. The guilt was like a low hum in the background, always there, never loud enough to make me stop, but just enough to make me feel like crap. I'd scroll through LinkedIn, see people my age posting about their promotions or their startups, and I'd think, what the hell am I doing? But then I'd close the app, open YouTube, and watch some guy build a treehouse in his backyard because, that was easier than facing my own mess. I remember one night in particular. It was a Thursday and I was supposed to finish a presentation for work. Nothing crazy, just a deck for a team meeting. I had 3 days to do it, plenty of time. But there I was, sprawled on my couch, one sock missing, a half-eaten pizza slice on the coffee table, watching a deep dive about why some cereal mascot looks like he's hiding a secret. My laptop was open, the blank slide staring at me like it was judging my life choices. I kept telling myself, 5 more minutes, then I'll start. 5 minutes turned into an hour, then two. By midnight, I hadn't written a single word. I wasn't just procrastinating on the presentation, though. That was just the surface. Deep down, I was stalling on bigger stuff, figuring out what I actually wanted from my job, my life, my future. Every time I thought about it, my brain would hit the brakes. Too big, too scary, too much work. So I'd distract myself with something, anything, to avoid the real questions. And the cycle just kept going, like a hamster wheel I did not know how to jump off. That night, though, something shifted. Not in a big cinematic way, like a bolt of lightning or a wise old mentor showing up with a pep talk. Nah, it was quieter than that. I was halfway through a video about the history of vending machines, riveting stuff, when my phone died. Just shut off, battery gone, and for the first time in hours, it was just me in the silence. No notifications, no background noise, just my thoughts. And let me tell you, they weren't kind. I looked around my apartment, dishes in the sink, laundry piling up, that blank presentation still mocking me. And I felt this wave of not anger, not sadness, but just exhaustion. I was so tired of letting myself down. Tired of knowing that I could do better but choosing not to. Tired of starting every day with a plan and ending it with excuses. I didn't want to keep living like this, dodging my own life because it felt too hard to face. So I did something I hadn't done in forever. I grabbed a notebook, not my laptop, not my phone, just a cheap spiral thing I hadn't touched since college, and I started writing. Not the presentation, not yet, just stuff, what I was feeling, why I kept putting things off, what I was scared of. It wasn't pretty. I wrote about how I felt stuck, how I was terrified of failing if I tried something new, how it was easier to do nothing than to risk screwing up. Page after page, just spilling it all out. And when I finally stopped, it was like I could breathe a little easier. That's when I realized something. Procrastination wasn't just about being lazy or disorganized. It was about fear. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of making the wrong move. Fear of looking stupid. Every time I put something off, I was really just hiding from that fear. And the longer I hid, the bigger it got. I didn't fix everything that night. Hell, I didn't even finish the presentation. But I went to bed feeling different, like I'd cracked open a door I didn't know was there. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was just drifting through my own life. I felt like I had a tiny bit of control. Like maybe, just maybe, I could figure this out. The next morning, I woke up and saw that notebook sitting on my nightstand, pages all crinkled from my late night scribbling. For a second, I thought about tossing it in a drawer and pretending it never happened. That's what old me would have done. Shove the hard stuff out of sight and go back to scrolling. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the sunlight sneaking through my blinds, or maybe it was just that I was too tired to keep running from myself. Either way, I picked it up and read what I'd written. It was raw, messy. Some of it didn't even make sense, like I'd been arguing with myself on paper. But one line stuck out. I'm not lazy, I'm just scared. That hit me like a punch. I'd always thought procrastination was about not having enough time or energy, but reading that, I realized it was deeper. I was stalling because I didn't trust myself to get it right. Whether it was the presentation, a career change, or even just calling my mom back, I was scared of messing it up. So I didn't start. Easier to stay safe than to crash and burn. That day at work, I couldn't shake it. I was in a meeting, nodding along while my boss droned on, but my brain was somewhere else. I kept thinking about all the things I'd put off, not just work stuff, but personal stuff too. Like how I'd been meaning to take a coding course for months, but never signed up because what if I suck at it? Or how I kept saying I'd visit my old college buddy in Chicago but never booked the flight because it felt like too much hassle. It was like my life was a giant to-do list, and I was just circling around it, never checking anything off. The presentation was still hanging over me too. I'd gotten an email from my teammate asking how it was going, and I typed out some BS about making good progress before hitting send, but I hadn't touched it. Every time I opened my laptop, I'd stare at that blank slide and feel my stomach twist. It wasn't even a hard project. I'd done a million of these in school, but now it felt like this one deck was a referendum on whether I was competent, whether I deserved my job, whether I was going anywhere in life. Dramatic, I know, but that's where my head was at. I started noticing how much I was dodging other things too. At lunch, I'd sit in the break room, scrolling through job postings, but never applying because I'm not qualified or I'll do it later when my resume's better. I'd tell myself I'd hit the gym after work, but end up on my couch, convincing myself I'd earned a rest day. Even small stuff, like buying groceries. I'd put it off until my fridge was down to ketchup packets and a sad onion. It was like I was allergic to action. The more I thought about it, the worse it felt. I wasn't just procrastinating, I was stuck. Stuck in this loop of wanting to do better but not knowing how to start. Every day I'd wake up with this vague sense of today's going to be different, but by night I'd be right back where I started. And the gap between who I was and who I wanted to be kept getting wider. I wasn't failing in some big, obvious way. No one was firing me. No one was calling me out. But I was failing myself, quietly, every single day. One night I was venting to my friend Sarah over beers. She's one of those people who always seems to have her shit together. Runs marathons, cooks like a pro, probably has a color-coded calendar. I told her how I felt like I was spinning my wheels, how I couldn't stop putting things off even when I knew better. I expected her to give me some advice like, just make a to-do list, or try waking up earlier. But instead, she laughed, not mean, just like she got it. She said, dude, you think I don't procrastinate? I spent 3 hours last week reorganizing my spice rack instead of finishing a work proposal. It's not about being perfect. It's about figuring out how to move anyway. That stuck with me. Move anyway. It sounded so simple, but it felt impossible. How do you move when every step feels like it could lead to a fall? How do you start when you're already so far behind? I didn't have answers, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Sarah's words were like a pebble in my shoe, small, annoying, impossible to ignore. A few days later, I hit a breaking point. I was at my desk, staring at that damn presentation again, when my boss swung by and casually asked how it was coming along. I mumbled something about almost done, but my palms were sweaty, and I felt like a kid caught cheating on a test. After he left, I just sat there, heart pounding, hating how small I felt. I didn't want to keep lying to myself or anyone else. I didn't want to keep living like this, always one step behind my own life. So I did something stupidly simple. I set a timer on my phone for 5 minutes. Not an hour, not a whole afternoon, just 5 minutes. I told myself, you don't have to finish the presentation. You just have to work on it for 5 minutes. That's it. No pressure to be perfect, no grand plan to change my life. Just 5 minutes of trying. When the timer started, I opened my laptop, typed a title slide, and threw in a couple of bullet points. It wasn't much, but it was something. And when the timer went off, I didn't stop. I kept going for another 10, then 20 minutes. By the end of the night, I had a rough draft. Not a masterpiece, but a start. And for the first time in weeks, I went to bed without that gnawing guilt in my chest. That 5-minute thing, it wasn't a one-off. It became my secret weapon. I started using it for everything, not just work, but all the stuff I'd been avoiding. Need to clean the apartment? 5 minutes of picking up dishes. Want to start that coding course? 5 minutes of watching the intro video. Got to send that email I'd been dodging. 5 minutes to type a messy first draft. It sounds dumb, like something you'd read in a self-help book you'd never buy, but it worked. The crazy thing is, it wasn't about the 5 minutes themselves. It was about what they did to my brain. Starting something, even for just a few minutes, made it less scary. It was like dipping your toes in a cold pool instead of cannonballing in. Once I got going, I'd usually keep going, because the hardest part, starting, was already done. And even if I didn't keep going, I still had 5 minutes more than I did before. 5 minutes of progress beats 5 hours of scrolling any day. I started to see procrastination differently. It wasn't this big, unbeatable monster. It was just my brain playing tricks on me, making things seem harder than they were. That fear I'd been running from, it didn't go away, but it got quieter. Every time I set that timer and did something, anything, it was like I was proving to myself that I could show up even when I didn't feel ready. And the more I showed up, the less power the fear had. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still days when I'd fall back into old habits, when I'd spend an hour on my phone instead of tackling my to-do list. But the difference was, I didn't let it spiral. I'd catch myself, set the timer, and start again. No guilt trips, no beating myself up. Just moving forward, one tiny step at a time. The presentation, by the way, I finished it. It wasn't perfect, but it was solid, and my boss gave me a nod during the meeting, which felt like a small win. More than that, though, I started checking other things off. I signed up for that coding course and stuck with it for a few weeks. I booked a flight to see my buddy in Chicago. I even started hitting the gym, not every day, but enough to feel like I wasn't just talking about it anymore. Looking back, I realized the 5-minute trick wasn't just about getting stuff done. It was about trusting myself again. Every time I followed through, even in a small way, I was rebuilding that belief that I could handle my life. I wasn't going to wake up one day and have it all figured out. No one does. But I could keep moving, keep starting, keep showing up. And that was enough. I still have moments when I feel stuck, when the mountain looks too big to climb. But now I know what to do. I grab my phone, set a timer, and tell myself, just 5 minutes. Most days, that's all it takes to get out of my own way. It's not a cure-all, and it's not going to make you a millionaire or solve world hunger. But it's a start. And sometimes a start is all you need. So here's the thing I've learned. The thing I'd tell you if we were sitting on a porch at midnight, passing a beer back and forth. You don't have to be fearless to move forward. You don't have to be perfect to start. You just have to give yourself 5 minutes to try. Because 5 minutes can change everything. Not because it's magic, but because it's yours. The only thing standing between you and your life is the 5 minutes you're too scared to start.